Guess who's back? Hey everyone. I know it's your girl, April. Welcome back to a new episode of My Solo Chronicles. And I know it's been a minute, but y'all, life has just been lifing in a positive way, of course. And as the title says, trekking back to Cali, I'm back in California. So, where do I even begin? So, I know most of you know that I left Japan and came back to the US. My original plan was to go straight, like literally come straight back to LA, but circumstances happened where I had to do kind of like a pivot and go back to Michigan, which in a way it worked out for the best because I needed a car because I had gave up my original car when I went to Japan. So I had to get another car. I had stuff that was stored in my at my friend's house, so I had to get that, and it was just like, okay, I'm not gonna spend like a ton of money to ship my stuff, which is ridiculous because think times are tight, and I needed to save as much as possible because I knew I was coming back out here and I was trying to get a car. So I said, you know what, as much as I was really trying not to do it, I mentally prepared myself to do that drive from Michigan back to LA. Yeah, you heard correctly. I drove back to LA from Michigan, just like I did in 2022 when I originally was coming back out here, and like I did when I was going to go back to Michigan before I left to go to Japan. So, yeah, so oh my gosh, people were like, you're gonna drive back to Michigan? So most people that knew me were like, you're gonna do it again. And those individuals that didn't know me but knew I was coming back to California, they was like, that's a long drive. You doing it by yourself? And I'm like, I sure am. Because my thing was like, just like any other thing I do, my schedule didn't align with other people's schedule. And I didn't want to delay my arrival here because I was due to start back to work at the hospital I used to work for May 11th. So I needed to be in California by that time, at least, 2 or 3 days before. So for some reason, I kept going back and forth on what day I actually was going to leave. So originally I said May 4th, but then I said May 5th. But then a monkey wrench was thrown in the mix where HR was like, well, we're going to need you to do this, this, and this because you're rehire. And we're going to have to do a virtual phone call. Or if you can get here by, you know, mid afternoon on the 7th, that would be awesome, and come to employee health. And I'm like, oh my gosh, what is going on? But I was blessed that I did everything I needed to do as a rehire slash new hire remotely in Michigan. All the tests that I needed to take, blood work, all of that, I was able to do in Michigan before I left. So that worked out. And then I'm going to tell y'all about that phone call because I was not playing around. So I finally decided I'm going to leave May 5th. I'm just going to just chance it, throw caution to the wind. But I also knew that I wanted to be somewhere either at a hotel or at a rest stop before I got that phone call on May 6th at, well, California time 10:40. But because hours, I want to say Colorado, Nebraska, they were like an hour or two ahead of California. So you're talking about their time. So I wanted to actually be somewhere in either Nebraska or the early part of Colorado before I got that phone call on the 6th. I did not want to be in Utah, nowhere in Utah. And I love Utah. Utah is beautiful, but there is a long ass stretch, and I mean a long ass stretch, where you have no signal. And you see signs telling you that. So I couldn't risk missing that phone call because if I missed that phone call, guess what? That pushed back my start date. So I was like, no, I'm going to leave on the 5th. I know I was going to haul ass as usual. And I'm going to get that phone call on May 6th. So I leave very early, May 5th. This is the adventure of my life, I swear. I just sometimes throw caution to the wind, and just hope, Lord, I know you with me, you my co-pilot. Let's get this. So I leave on May 5th, very early. I left the house where I was living. I left probably about, I want to say 5-ish. It was a little after 5. It was really early compared to, the time that I left back in 2022. By the time I hit the road, because I had to stop at McDonald's and get a frappe before I hit the road because I needed that boost. I got a frappe, made sure I got me a little breakfast so that on my drive, I'm focused. By the time I get on the highway, it's 5:30. So I'm on 94. Y'all, listen, I'm going to give this word of advice. Be careful with Garmin or whatever you use. Make sure that it's going to be able to last at least a couple of hours in your drive, especially if it's long distance, because you don't want to end up having to pull over and scramble to get, you know what I'm saying, to get, your route, get back on track to your route. I say that because I had bought it was like kind of similar to the Garmin that I had before. And I'm thinking, okay, I done already put in my coordinates, my distances, I done put the address in where I'm going to stay, blah, blah, blah. So I'm thinking I'm good. No joke. Literally about, I want to say almost a half an hour into my drive. Now, I just said I got on the road about 5:30, so I'm thinking I'm good. Not even a half an hour into my drive, my Garmin goes, and I should have known you get what you pay for. My Garmin goes boop boop, and I'm like, oh, well, what the hell is that? What's that noise? It needed to be recharged. I had charged this sucker. I left this sucker on charge. Mind you, I left May 5th. I put that Garmin on a charger like that Sunday. So it was sitting on the charger for a good like 2 days. So I'm just like, wait, how is it my battery I need to recharge and the battery's low? Because I checked all of that literally the night before. And I'm just like, wait a minute. So I'm literally hauling it on 94. I hadn't even left Michigan yet. And my Garmin needed to be recharged. And I was just like, oh, this is just great. I had to pull over on the side of the highway as cars are flying by at like 5 something in the morning. And I had to figure out, okay, let me just put it on charger in my car and then I'll keep going. Well, there was an adventure after adventure. I could not use the GPS system because it was charging. So I was just like, you have to be kidding me. You can't make this up. I couldn't do nothing but laugh because it took everything I had not to get pissed. So I said, you know what? I'm gonna go old school route. I'm gonna pull out my iPhone and I'm gonna use my iPhone. And literally, when I tell you, my iPhone, the Google Maps, and I usually don't trust Google Maps because it tends to take me in circles. Like you'll put in your destination and it'll take you in circles, and when you realize it, wait a minute, I could have went this way instead of going this way. But I was like, you know what? I need to get to LA May 7th. I just used my iPhone, Google Maps. And I was so mad, but I was like, you know what? It's all good. I'm going to get there. On May 5th, I managed to go through Illinois, which I guarantee you, Google Maps was taking me in circles. But it's all good because it said, oh, you're going to get there in a day. Like Google Maps said a day in like 8 hours and so many seconds. I was like, nah, not on my watch. So I'm not driving straight. And that's one of the things I recommend to anybody. If you're going to do like a long haul, like drive, like I did, and especially if you're going by yourself, please drive until, like I say, maybe the sun is starting to set, or you're starting to get tired, and just like get like a hotel room so that you can rest up and just continue on to your journey, because you don't want to chance it and get drowsy and get into an accident or whatever. I'm looking at Google Maps like there's no way I'm gonna do this drive in like a day, 8 hours and so many seconds. And plus I couldn't okay, so I ended up getting an Airbnb, and I only got it for like 2 weeks because my original place where I lived in Los Angeles, she was having it kind of renovated, so I had to kind of wait to like move back in. I knew I couldn't, get into my Airbnb until after 2. I had to time everything. Well, I kind of timed everything, but then again, it was just like I was driving by the seat of my pants. I'm hauling it the first day, no joke. I went through Illinois, Indiana, which I had never fully been through Indiana. Again, Google Maps playing games, the trickery. I went through Indiana, Nebraska, and I want to say, no, I'm sorry. Before Nebraska, I went through Iowa. So Iowa, and I mean, I was hauling it through Iowa. When I seen that speed limit, I was like, bet, I love it. And then literally half of Nebraska. So by the time I pulled over to get a hotel, I was kind of on the tip of Nebraska going into Colorado. I hadn't made it just yet into Colorado, but I knew it was coming up soon. Unless I got the states mixed up. Yeah, I think it was. I know for a fact it was Illinois, um, Indiana, yeah, Iowa, and then Nebraska. So in Nebraska, I ended up getting a hotel and spending the night at a hotel, and then I got up, which I was. I'm gonna tell y'all, I had no appetite, so I wasn't hungry, and a lot of people that I told that to, that I literally didn't get my appetite back until I think I was back in LA maybe a week after, where I actually started back eating. I don't know why, I just wasn't hungry. I would force myself to eat, but I wasn't hungry. I woke up kind of late, and when I say late, I didn't leave the hotel in Nebraska and get back on the road until I want to say maybe 6:37. So to me that's late, because like I said, I'm kind of on a crunch schedule, but I'm kind of not. So yeah, I ended up driving, and whenever I would pull over and get gas or pull over to use the bathroom, again, I never really stopped to get anything to eat because I didn't have that appetite. And for the life of me, I don't know why, but I just didn't. And it wasn't like I was anxious, because I was coming back to a life that I had already started to establish before I left going to Japan. So, yeah, it wasn't anxiety. So, whenever I would pull over, I would just stretch my legs for maybe 15, 20 minutes, but I always made up that time on the road. And it, like I said, it helped that the speed limit, especially in Colorado and Nebraska, was fantastic. If the speed limit said 80, my ass was doing like 85, 90. So that helped greatly. I'm driving, and before I fully got into Colorado, I ended up pulling over because by this time it's now May 6th. So the way I would keep track of my time, because again, I needed to do that virtual phone call with employee health at the hospital that I work for around 10:40, but it was going to be like 11:40 my time. So I knew I wanted to be somewhere near a rest stop soon before I really, really started driving in Colorado. I just happened to see a Starbucks, and it was maybe about like close to 11. And I said, wherever I stop, I'm literally going to stay there for an hour, because I knew that phone call was coming soon. But I also knew I was going to make that time up on the road because I wasn't really stopping. So I pull over. I just happened to see the Starbucks sign. And right when I pull off the road, I pull into this rest area. It was like a rest area slash information center, just a regular rest stop, but it also had a park. So I said, you know what? I'm going to stay here until I get that phone call. I never got to Starbucks because I couldn't find it. So it was like, in a way, that Starbucks sound was good. It was good that I seen it, because that was my cue to let me know, okay, it's time for you to pull off and just wait, because that phone call is coming. So this was May 6th. So I ended up being able to get do the phone call. Never got my Starbucks. The phone call it was supposed to be 15, 20 minutes, where it stretched to like a half an hour. So now you're talking about an hour and a half that I got to make up And trust me, your girl made that shit up because I was not playing. So I was like, Lord, you know my timing. I know you got me. We getting there. Ended up, did the phone call. Everything was good. I want to say as soon as I got back on the road, I was maybe a little under a half an hour before I crossed into Colorado. And as soon as I crossed into Colorado, it was all go. And this was, like I said, this was like May 6th. Driving in Colorado. Okay, let's just like flash back a little bit. When I drove into Colorado back in 2022, it was in March. And I get it, it was still winter. So to see the snow and everything, I was like, wow, ooh, you know what I'm saying? I'm from Michigan. I know what snow looks like. But for some reason, when I seen it in Colorado, it was like amazing. I was like so just, I don't know, so excited to see snow and to see Colorado. You know what I'm saying? That was then. That was in 2022. So I'm thinking, I'm good. And you have to look at too, when I ended up driving in 2022, I ran into a ton of traffic. I had never did this drive before, so this was a first for me. So I kind of was mentally preparing myself for the ton of traffic, especially when you're going through all these curves. Colorado, there's a stretch within Colorado where you're going through the mountains, you know, it's hilly. You gotta, if you're a slow moving vehicle, you have to get to the right. You gotta move out of everybody's way. They're talking about snow tires, chains on your tires, all of that great, wonderful stuff. So I mentally was prepared for that. The good thing this time, because I left in May, there was no traffic. So that was fantastic. I mean, you had people here and there driving, but it wasn't bad. When I left Michigan, I left in a t-shirt, sweatpants, and I had on sandals, but I had on my little comfy socks because I wanted to be comfortable during this drive. I get in deep into Colorado because now the stretch is coming. This is when I say, okay, now I'm about to haul it. Get into Colorado. Didn't notice, the temp was about, maybe it got to, I think the lowest I seen was like 26. And I'm like, okay, well, that's no problem. It's May. They're coming out of this winter. You know what I'm saying? and I and I wanted a hot cup of tea. That's all I wanted. So I stopped off on my drive. Sorry for the background noise because I'm out and about and I'm actually walking and running, which I'm doing. I'm preparing for a marathon in October, doing a relay race. So I'm going back to Michigan, but I'm not driving. I'm flying. So, anyways, I pull over at this 7-Eleven and I wanted a hot cup of tea and a bag of chips. That's all I wanted. I was gonna gas up too. And that was another thing. I never really gassed up as much. I maybe gassed up, I want to say 3 times on the 5th and 3 times on the 6th. And once I arrived into California. I pull over at this 7-Eleven. I wanted a hot cup of tea. As I get out, I notice there's flakes falling. And I'm talking about like little flakes, nothing big. And I was like, wow, it's look like it's snowing a little bit. But you know what? That's flakes. You know what? This is Colorado. Of course it's gonna be flakes. No worries. But when I got out the car, it was like I had stepped into the North Pole. Before I could fully get out the car, there's like icy slush. Like you know how like when the snow melts and it gets like kind of slushy or whatever. And I was just like, you got to be kidding me. So I had to ramble through my suitcase, get my boots out, because mind you, I had flip-flops. I changed into my boots. I put on my sweat shirt that matched my sweatpants. And it was cold. I had to grab my scarf. And I was just like, wow, Colorado, y'all really on some stuff out here. It's like May like 6th. What the hell? I go into 7-Eleven, y'all. I was only in 7-Eleven for like not even like maybe 5-10 minutes. I walk out. Well, those flakes started to really get flaky because there was a lot. And I was like, okay, this is weird. But whatever. I got my tea. I'm like in like dreamland now because I got me a large hot cup of tea finally for the first time in a few days. You know, I'm about to go through Colorado. When I pulled out of 7-Eleven, Mother Nature says, right, bet, I got you. Before I could even get back on the road, the snow started coming down, and I mean snow, like Michigan snow. And I'm looking and I'm like, what the hell? So it's just like, what the hell is this? All of a sudden, I see once you're like, there's a stretch in Colorado because you're like now deep into the mountains. You know how they have those billboards that flash to tell you if there's like alerts, they give you alerts or whatever. I see the alert that says, and I said, why does that look like winter weather advisory? Because I had to focus, and as I'm driving, slowly, of course, I had to get my glasses out, and I says, hold up, they're under a winter advisory? Y'all, when I tell you, when it turned white outside, you couldn't even see in front of you. It, I'm going to choose my words wisely, but it was a fucking blizzard. I said, oh my gosh. Literally, it felt like forever, but I was driving through snow. Correction, not even snow. A winter advisory blizzard for eternity. It wasn't eternity. Y'all know I'm being dramatic, but it was probably like maybe almost an hour, a little over an hour, because I'm driving slow. Because, like I said, it's a snowstorm. It's like, you can't see in front of you, so I can't be hauling it. It's just like, what the hell just happened? And even though it was like a blizzard, I was in awe, in all honesty. I was like, wow, this was up. This is actually pretty cool. Because when I came through here the first time, it had snowed, but it wasn't like this. So I can officially say I know how the people that live in Colorado, how they feel when that weather comes and why they have to have chains on their tires, because it was interesting. I will say that. I finally got out of that, and I couldn't even begin to tell you the relief I had coming out of that snowstorm, because it was May. It's like May 6th. What's going on, Colorado? Are you serious? But I guess that's what they're used to happen or whatever. That's what they get. I ended up driving through Colorado. By the time I got another hotel, I was already in Utah. I was on the tip of Utah. I hadn't fully started driving into Utah. I was like, so I literally went through all of Colorado, like all like the remainder of like May 6th, and then once the sun went down, I just got a hotel and you know rested up. Um, Again, had a late start where I ended up getting on the road. This time I really was late because I wanted to time myself for the Airbnb that I had got. Um, I didn't get back on the road until maybe about like 7:30, 8. Um, Came into LA. Um, and this is the thing too. I literally, every time I got into my car, I always prayed, Lord, get me to my destination safely. Wherever these tires on this car drives, get me there safely. Watch over me, keep me safe. I know you're with me. You know, just, make sure nothing happens to my car, that I'm going to fly. Just, the regular stuff, because I wanted to be safe. I wanted to be careful. But once I got into the car on the 7th, I had to, before I even started my car, I had to do a prayer again, as usual, as per usual, because that's what I do, you know. And I literally said, Lord, y'all listen to me now. I said, Lord, I want to get to my Airbnb because I knew I couldn't get in until after 2. I want to be pulling up in front of my Airbnb at 5:30, no later than. I literally got to my Airbnb at 5:31. No joke, on May 7th. And again, the fantastic speed limit, that is Utah. Utah speed limit was 80, 85. I never drove under 90. So that lets you know how fast I was driving. And again, and I've said this previously, anybody that drives through Utah, you're going to be amazed, because even though I had no signal, I had my Bluetooth in my phone, in my car. So I was able to listen to music as I was driving the whole time. I just literally played my whole entire Apple playlist I never listened to the radio because half of the time I didn't have any signal. So it's like, why am I'm wasting, electricity trying to listen to static. And I didn't want to be listening to a radio that's not playing anything and I get drowsy. So I played my music, and driving through Utah, it just felt peaceful. It felt great. Um, the curves, if you're not paying attention, will take you right out. But it was awesome. There's a stretch where there was literally, when I tell you, I got kind of nervous because I'm like, wait a minute, Google Maps, am I on the right track? To the point where there was like nobody on the road, especially when I left like early that morning on the 7th. There was nobody. There was like a long while, and I mean, I'm not talking about a half an hour, I'm not talking about an hour. There was a long while where I was literally the only car on the road. And like I said, I got nervous because I was just like, okay, where the hell is everybody? Even as the time went on and it got closer to like 12 and 1, there was like nobody. So I was just like, wow. But then again, then I started to see people, and I was just like, okay, now I feel good because I'm seeing these truckers. Drove into LA, as always, drove into traffic, and I said, wow, my welcome back to LA was literally sitting in traffic and doing 2 miles an hour. I said, well, I know I'm home. I know I'm back. And it felt good. And ever since I've gotten back to LA, there's literally, no regrets on my part. Because I know originally when I left, I said, you know what? I don't know if I'll be back. I don't know how long I'll be in Japan. I'm just going to take it one day at a time. And that's what I did. You know, Japan was good for what it was. I enjoyed it. Which I gotta eventually. I'm gonna tell y'all about when my bestie. I know I'm jumping ahead again. I'm gonna tell you about when my bestie came to Japan, and I was so excited, and I met her in Japan. I'm gonna tell y'all about my first time staying in a hotel that you're in pods. I think that's what they're called. It was the most fantastic thing ever. But again, I'm going ahead of myself. But anyways, I picked up my life where I left off at. You could, if you didn't know that I had left last year in January, you would think I've been here since 2022 straight, because I picked up where I left off at. My job, I'm back at my old job. I'm literally back at my old place. I'm literally sitting in a park where I usually would go to run or walk. You know what I'm saying? The 405, the 101. It was just like everything is back to where it was before I left. And I'm happy. I'm excited. I'm just glad to be back. Like I said, when I flew back from Japan and I went back to Michigan, and I've said this so many times since coming back to LA, I'm always going to be a Michiganer. No one can take that away from me. I'm always going to represent Detroit. No one can take that away from me. But I knew I missed LA. I missed California. Even though this traffic sometimes can make you cause you to have road rage. But you know what? I sit in traffic now and I'm just like, you know what? This is what I missed. And I'm glad to be back. And there's no other place like Cali. You know what I'm saying? You know, regardless, if you love a place and you go back to that place, you will say there's no other place like it. And that's what I felt like. That was my lifing. And I apologize for being gone so long, because there is this big gap between this episode and the last episode I did. Like I said, things were going so rapidly fast that I just had to get somewhere, sit down, refocus, and just get settled and just start back up again. Guys, I did miss you. I'm glad I'm back. And I'm glad we can chit chat. And now we're up to date. I look forward to talking to you in the next episode. And as always, my moonbeams, have a great rest of the day. And I will talk to you later. Bye.